Let me tell you a story that still gives me goosebumps when I think about it, not just because of what happened, but because of who made it happen. It wasn't a CEO or a politician or some high-paid consultant. It was a little girl, just 7 years old. Her name was Amina Brooks, and the day she walked into that marble-and-glass skyscraper with her mother's resume in one hand and a juice box in the other, the entire city of Chicago would change. It started on a Tuesday morning. You know, the kind gray sky, biting wind, the L trains screeching like they're just as tired as the people on them. Amina woke up early because she always did on Tuesdays. Her mom, Kendra, had an interview that day at Fairborn Asset Group, one of those places where everyone wears cufflinks and nobody eats their lunch at their desk. Kendra had prepped for it like it was the Super Bowl, cleaned her only blazer, practiced interview questions with Amina in their tiny kitchen, stayed up until 2 printing out reports and formatting her portfolio. But at 6:47 a.m., as she stepped out of the shower, Kendra collapsed. Her sickle cell flared up again, chest tight, bones on fire, barely able to speak. She tried to wave Amina off, but the girl had seen this before. She knew what to do. She called 911. She wrapped her mom in the comforter. She held her hand until the paramedics came. And when they asked who to call, Amina just said, "She has an interview at 10. Somebody's got to tell Mr. Baxter." They thought she meant a teacher or a coach. But no, Amina meant the CEO of Fairborn Asset Group, the man her mom had spent a month researching, whose company she'd dreamed of joining, even if it felt like they never hired anyone who looked like her. At 9:12 a.m., Amina stood outside the revolving doors of the Fairborn building, clutching a folder almost as big as her torso. She had on a pink coat that was missing one button and snow boots that didn't match, but she stood like she belonged there. A receptionist saw her standing alone and came out, thinking she was lost. "Sweetheart, where's your parent?" "In the hospital," Amina replied, not missing a beat. "But she had an interview. I came instead." The woman blinked, looked around, glanced at the security guard, then bent down. "Interview for what?" "Senior portfolio strategist. Her name is Kendra Brooks. The resume's right here. She worked real hard on it. I promised her I'd bring it." Now this receptionist, Maria, had worked in that building for 6 years. She'd seen plenty people shouting about meetings that didn't exist, interns crying in the elevators, even a man once who showed up with a goat as some kind of protest. But she had never seen this. A child showing up not to cause trouble but to honor her mother's effort. Maria took the folder, then paused, looked at the name, and her jaw clenched, because she remembered that name. She'd seen it yesterday when she printed the interview schedule, and she also remembered what one of the VPs had said when he saw it. "We should start screening for school pedigree again. I don't know why we're wasting time on community college transfers." But Maria wasn't going to send this kid away, not without trying. So she made a call upstairs. And to her surprise, and probably to cover optics, the CEO himself agreed to say a few words to the girl. 15 minutes later, Amina was standing inside the boardroom on the 34th floor. The room was all steel and stone and silence. Long mahogany table, water glasses lined up like soldiers, men in gray suits whispering behind hands. At the head of the table stood Garrett Baxter, mid-50s, Harvard MBA, 3-time runner-up for Forbes Chicago Executive of the Year. He looked at Amina the way someone might look at a stray cat that had wandered into a fine dining restaurant. "Young lady," he said, folding his hands, "we appreciate your gesture, but interviews are conducted with qualified adults." Amina didn't even blink. She stepped forward and placed the folder on the table. "My mom's qualified. She got an MBA from Roosevelt University. She worked 12 years at Lanebrook Investments. She managed $112 million in client portfolios." A snicker escaped from someone at the far end of the table. "She couldn't come because she got sick," Amina continued. "She told me to say sorry. But she said if you at least read her report, you'd see she was worth your time." There was silence for a beat too long. Then someone cleared their throat. Garrett glanced down at the folder, flipped it open, looked at the first page, then the second, and for a moment, just a flicker, his brow twitched. Amina stood quietly, hands clasped. Also, she added, she said to tell you she studied your 2023 risk-adjusted performance sheets, and she had ideas for improving your yield curve models. Now Garrett was looking at her, not like a child, but like a variable he hadn't accounted for. The meeting resumed. Amina left the room, but the ripple had begun. That afternoon, a video surfaced. No one knows who leaked it, but the boardroom had been recording for transparency, they said. It caught everything. The way Garrett dismissed her. The way one executive muttered, "Let's file it under charity cases." By evening, it was all over LinkedIn. By morning, MSNBC was outside. Hashtags, little strategist, Fairborn bias, hire Kendra now. A week later, Garrett offered Kendra a consulting position. No benefits, no title, but enough to look good in the press. Kendra declined. Then she went on 60 Minutes. And she brought Amina with her. The episode aired on a Sunday night. It opened with a shot of Amina explaining how she learned to read a P&L statement. It ended with Kendra looking straight into the camera and saying, "I didn't raise my daughter to fight her way into rooms that pretend they don't see her. I raised her to build her own." 2 months later, Kendra launched her own firm, Brooks Equity Partners. First hires, 3 women who had been laid off after being passed over for promotions. First client, a nonprofit dedicated to financial literacy for underrepresented youth. Their biggest investor? A tech CEO who'd seen the 60 Minutes clip and sent a handwritten letter to Amina. Meanwhile, Fairborn? The EEOC filed a formal complaint. Internal audits. Anonymous testimonies. A class action suit. Garrett retired. Quietly. With a golden parachute. But the damage was done. The myth of meritocracy cracked. And Amina? She went back to school. Started a blog. Titled it, "Rooms That Weren't Built for Us." Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk into a room that was never meant for you and leave the door open behind you. What would you have done if you were in Garrett Baxter's seat that day? Would you have listened? Or would you have filed her mother away like just another number? Leave a comment below. Share your truth. And if you believe courage comes in small shoes with mismatched boots, share this story. Because some rooms need shaking. And some truths only a child can speak. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more stories that matter, stories about justice, about change, and about people who don't wait to be invited in. They open the door anyway.